So the quick backstory on this motor here. Bought this truck used, had 60,000 miles on it. Figured, oh, 60,000, diesel motor, you're sitting pretty. Did my first oil change, actually found out it had a remanufactured motor. Kind of scared me a bit. But found out through service records it was done at a Ford dealer, under warranty. And it was done 200 miles before I got the truck. So, seemingly a great deal. You know, buy a used truck, get a $17,000 motor, and nobody paid attention to mark the price up. Sounds good to me. Anyways, about 5,000 miles into it, had a super loud knock. Turned the motor off. I was driving down the freeway, turned the motor off, pulled over. Couldn't find anything wrong, checked it over. Decided to start it up, see if I could recreate the noise. And everything sounded fine. I couldn't figure it out, kind of scared me. Next day, driving to work, about 15 minutes into the drive, same loud knock, vibrations like crazy, end up pulling over. This time I noticed my clutch pedal was pretty much down to the floor and unresponsive, so I figured, okay, maybe I got a bad clutch, 60,000 miles, heavy duty truck, it's plausible. Still was a really loud noise though. I haven't heard a clutch that sounded like freight train. But anyways, limped it home. Turns out it wasn't the clutch. It's actually the crankshaft thrust bearings. So if you can watch the motor here. See if I can stabilize this a little bit. Completely moves. Obviously, shouldn't have. What is that? You can see almost like a 1/4 of an inch play. Anyways, I straightened these guys out, but this was the thrust bearing. I've got a picture of it. It looked like a noodle, one before I straightened it. They actually sit right in here on this guy, but on the block side. It's kind of a U-shaped thrust bearing and crank bearing all in one, I guess. It's kind of a bullshit design if you ask me. Here's the other one. It's not even like a one-piece thing, it's like a 3-piece deal. So these, if I were to pull this bearing out here. Oh yeah, by the way, so I don't think your bearings should do that. Anyways, that's part of it, and you can see these little tangs, and they just line up with those little tangs, and they're like, I'm assuming somehow spring loaded or something, but seems pretty chintzy to me. Anyways, so I'm not sure if this what the cause here, if it was defect right from the gate, because obviously we have this bearing failure, we have this bearing failure. This one was, you can see the tang down there, maybe not, but it was starting to spin, so that thing probably, who knows, a couple more revolutions here and she would have been gone too. The front actually is in great shape. The crank itself is still polished. Bearing hasn't moved at all. It's kind of the same situation here. Let me put those back. Same situation here on the rear. Bearing hasn't moved. Crank has got, it's still in great shape, but you can see there's a couple of lines. So whatever the filter wasn't stopping was starting to come through. But I'm kind of more believing that this bearing went out first, and once this bearing went out, the other bearings were just kind of a cause of this crank moving back and forth every time I'd push on the clutch. So you can already see how the bearing wants to move. Just imagine doing that at 2,000 RPM under load. I'm assuming that's the case. Could still be, maybe there was a oil passage blocked or something. Not exactly sure. The bed plate itself here is fucked. This is the back side, so you can see how the crank timing gear was eating into the bed plate. I mean, this essentially became my thrust washer bearing, whatever you want to call it. You can see how bad it is here. I mean, it's like been machining this thing away. This one's got some slight bit from the crank coming in there, but I mean the crank's only that tall at that spot, so that's why that one's shallower than this one. The crank just has more face on this one. Same deal down here. We're going closer to the front of the engine here. Same deal. The front's actually okay. I mean, that's what it's supposed to look like, rough machining from the factory, not freshly polished. Bearing surface is gone. You can grate cheese on some of these. The bearing in the front and the back, though, like I said, they didn't spin. Maybe some minor scratching from whatever was coming through the filter. But those were holding up. Good job, Ford. I'll just figure out how to do that on the other 3 journals and or 6 pistons here. So yeah, 5,000 mile old motor. Essentially put in by Ford at a dealer. So it was the $17,000 official Ford Motorcraft part, and that's what you get. So I'm doing it myself. Oh yeah, so piston shattered right there from, I'm assuming, when the bearing gave out and was trying to work its way down into the oil pan. A couple of those tubes, the oil squirters for the piston. This one's actually more banged up. You can't really see it in the pictures here, but it's kind of touching the piston as it comes up. So yeah, pistons are gone, crank's gone, block's gone, bed plate's gone. Oh, almost lost the breaker bar. And then, like, these bearings are super chewed, and there's this one huge flat divot. I can only assume that was the little tang that ripped off when it started to spin, and it just got in between the bearing and that. I don't know. That's why I'm banking the video. You guys tell me here. Was it single bearing failure? Thrust bearing failure? Or was it something else? That's the surface of the crank. Little emery cloth ought to fix that right up, though. Just put a little JB weld on that guy there. Yeah, it'll be right as rain here.